Welcome to this episode on open-closed principle in Ruby. I'll explain what this open-closed principle is and where it came from and how it actually shows up in Ruby code. So let's get started. First, the background I want to give you is this book by Bertrand Meyer, Object-Oriented Software Construction, which was published in 1998. Dr. Bertrand Meyer came up with this concept called open closed principle, and this basically means a module must be open for extension but closed for modification. And it becomes extremely important when you have a production system and you don't want to go through the entire cycle of testing, unit testing, acceptance testing, and integration testing, and finally deploying it, and then making sure it's working on the production. What we want is a code or module that is capable of being extended without modifying the code. So one thing just jumped out of the source code was I was at the RailsConf 2008, and there was a presentation on advanced active record techniques, best practice refactoring presentation by Thoughtbot developers. The authors wrote the Proactive Record book. And here is an example they have, and they really didn't mention anything about open close principle. Everybody just seems to know about this try, and that's all most of the people in Ruby community know about dry principle, and that's it. So I want to introduce this concept of open close principle, and being aware of this principle makes you a better developer. And you can it does involve the human judgment where you need to decide for yourself. For instance, if you have constants like days of the week, Monday through Sunday or something, it's not going to change. And January through December, it's not going to change. You can just define it here in the source code and you're done. And if we cannot foresee that, we may need to add more states, for instance, in this example, it does look like you cannot foresee all the states and suddenly marketing department comes to you and gives you a new state and we need to handle in the code. Are you going to open up this class and put another hash, key value pair, and then it go through the entire cycle of long deploying cycle for just deploying one minor chain? That's going to be a hassle, and it also violates the open close principle. You should not modify this code and still be able to extend this logic when a new state is introduced. So what can be done in that case? There are several options. You can one thing is you can store these states in the database and load them accordingly. That way, once you just update the database, it's just going to get picked up from the database, and you don't need to redeploy. And as long as the record is the right record in the database, everything should work. And Ruby being a dynamic language, the way you would implement in a language like C++ or Java is not really required in Ruby. Ruby classes are open, and you can just open up a class and define a new method using class eval, and you you can also use a define method during runtime and define new methods and so on. So it's much more flexible when you're familiar with the metaprogramming concepts. So be aware of this principle when you're looking at your code, and whenever there is an opportunity to utilize this principle, you can take this into consideration. So that's it for this screencast, and if you enjoyed it, please recommend me on Working with Rails. Thank you.